Today on Rappler. Former lawmaker Arnie Teves Jr. has been deported from Timor-Leste to the Philippines to face his criminal cases. Police Major General Nicolas Torre III has been appointed Chief of the Philippine National Police. Solicitor General Menardo Guevarra exits President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s cabinet. President Marcos orders all ranking executives of government-owned and controlled corporations to submit their courtesy resignations. And Pope Leo XIV calls for a ceasefire in Gaza. Former lawmaker Arnie Teves Jr. has been deported from Timor-Leste to the Philippines to face his criminal cases after years of evading arrest. Teves boarded a Manila-bound plane around 1:10 p.m. on Thursday, May 29. He was handcuffed and had his feet shackled as Philippine and Timorese authorities escorted him to the aircraft. The plane took off at about 2:42 p.m. The Philippine delegation bringing him home includes NBI Director Jaime Santiago and DOJ Assistant Secretary Eliseo Cruz. The Timorese government announced Teves' deportation on May 28. It said Teves had no visa, legal papers, or valid passport to warrant his stay in Timor-Leste. Teves' lawyer said he was arrested in Dili on Tuesday, May 27 by immigration police. At the time, the reason for the arrest was unclear, but the Timorese government later said it was due to immigration violations. Police Major General Nicolas Torre III has been appointed Chief of the Philippine National Police. Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin made the announcement on Thursday, May 29. Torre is replacing Police General Romel Francisco Marbil, who is retiring in early June. President Marcos earlier described his choice for PNP chief, without naming names, as a, quote, very senior officer who knows the situation. As chief of the PNP Criminal Investigation and Detection Group, Torre oversaw the arrest of former President Rodrigo Duterte and his handover to the International Criminal Court. He also led the arrest of televangelist Apollo Kibuloy for charges of sexual abuse and human trafficking. Torre is the first PNP chief to have graduated from the Philippine National Police Academy. Previous police chiefs were graduates of the Philippine Military Academy. Solicitor General Menardo Guevarra exits President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s cabinet. Guevarra confirmed this in a message to Rappler on May 29 and was later announced by Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin. This is part of a second wave of changes to the Marcos cabinet. The first revamp was announced on May 23 when Marcos asked all cabinet members to file their courtesy resignation. Guevarra was former President Rodrigo Duterte's Justice Secretary, and it was speculated that Marcos had meant to remove him. Guevarra earlier declined to defend the Marcos administration in cases involving Duterte's arrest and handover to the International Criminal Court. But Guevarra was reportedly excluded from the first revamp because his replacement had not been finalized. UP College of Law Dean Darlene Marie Berberabe will replace Guevarra as Solicitor General, whose primary function is to lawyer for the government. Meanwhile, brothers Boying and John Vic Remulla are retained as Justice and Interior Secretaries respectively, and Gibo Chodoro as Defense Secretary. Commission on Higher Education Chief Popoy de Vera is out and will be replaced by CHED Commissioner Shirley Agrupis. President Marcos orders all ranking executives of government-owned and controlled corporations to submit their courtesy resignations. This comes days after he asked cabinet members to do the same. This includes chairpersons, chief executive officers, directors, trustees, and board members of GOCCs. A notice dated May 26 was made public through the Governance Commission website on Wednesday, May 28. All chairpersons and CEOs who don't hold other government posts are to file their resignations with the Office of the Executive Secretary. Meanwhile, appointed directors, trustees, and board members should notify the Governance Commission, but they are to continue working until Marcos accepts their resignation. Marcos earlier said he would revamp his administration to make sure it is aligned with what the public wants. Pope Leo XIV calls for a ceasefire in Gaza. The leader of the world's Catholics made this appeal on Wednesday, May 28. He also called on Israel and Hamas militants to follow international humanitarian law. Pope Leo says, quote, "To those responsible, I renew my appeal. Stop the fighting. Liberate all the hostages. Completely respect humanitarian law." Leo has only been Pope for 3 weeks, but he has already spoken about the war in Gaza several times. In his first public audience last week, he asked Israel to let more humanitarian aid into Gaza. The Pope also condemned recent attacks on civilians and buildings in Ukraine after Russia launched its biggest airstrike in the 3-year war. And that's today's wrap. I'm Michelle Abad. Thank you for watching. Click the link below for the full story. Follow us on Rappler's YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok.